This is the Everything Weight Loss podcast with Shari Ware, where we talk about everything, all things, anything to do with weight loss, health, and wellness. So today we're talking to Julia Williams from The Thoughts Architect, who helps people who are stuck at a fork in the road in their career, relationships, or life itself, which leads to a lack of purpose, procrastination, and self-sabotage. Who has not suffered from all of those things? I know I definitely have. So Julia, there you go. Julia also helps people discover how their tribal cycles and roles keep them from living the life they want to lead, particularly if they've come from dysfunctional families or childhood abuse. I'm definitely relating to all of that, and I'm really excited to talk about this with you today, Julia. So thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. So my very first question is going to be, what's your story? Why do you do what you do? What has led you to this point in your life?
I do what I do simply because from birth I was in a very dysfunctional family. To the outside world, it probably appeared quite loving and normal middle-class family. There was a lot of psychological abuse. There was physical abuse from my father to my brother. And when I was 13, for the next 2 years, my father raped me weekly. So obviously, we also had to move around a lot. So every time I got settled somewhere, I got ripped up and moved somewhere else. So all of those things together have made it very difficult for me to trust people, to be intimate with people, to not use sex as a tool to buy love off people. It's made it difficult to model a loving relationship to my children because I've never seen that. I don't know how to handle conflict. I don't know how to express emotions. I don't know how to express my needs. So that's all stuff that I've had to learn as an adult, and I'm still learning now. So the reason I do what I do is because once I became aware of how all of that stuff from childhood played out, there were many times that I didn't have the money to get the help that I needed.
Wow. Okay, so I'm really looking forward to getting into that further. But first of all, I want to ask you, if you were to say that you had a superpower, what would that be?
I think it is attracting people that have had equally difficult childhoods, because I have done a counselling degree. I've done a few life coaching courses. I've done emotional intimacy training. So I think people somehow know that although I've got the tough exterior, which I have to have from my childhood, somehow you resonate with that and you know that we're like people and it's safe to talk to me. That's my superpower.
Okay, and that definitely resonates with me because I was absolutely drawn to you when we had our very first conversation, which is why we're here today. And I've definitely had those experiences in my life as well. So tell us more about. I'm guessing that the tribal cycles and the roles played out in your life. So tell us more about that.
Okay. So obviously, like, you could spend hours talking about this, but tribal cycles is through the generations, you learn how to be a parent, you learn how to be a man, you learn how to be a daughter, a mother, you learn how to be in relationships, you learn how to express yourself by what you see modeled in your family. So we are still modeling behavior from our great-grandparents in times that were very, very different to ours.
Wow, whether we realise it or not.
Yeah.
Wow.
And for me, because my great-grandparents and my grandparents were English, living through World War I and World War II, there's a lot of that scarcity sort of mindset, which affects me with my money nowadays, because I believed money was neutral, but now I'm realizing it's not. Again, because in those days, the father's gone off to war and the mother is maybe working in the ammunition factory, children pretty much get left to look after themselves, which was certainly the case with my brother and I. So it's not about blaming your parents. You need to be clear about that. It's understanding that they're just doing what they were taught to do by their parents, and they were just taught. So everybody did the best they could with the knowledge that they had.
Yep.
But again, if you think back to your great-grandparents' day, they didn't know about psychological trauma and things like that. So
I guess they don't have the luxury either.
Yeah. And everybody thinks I'm so fortunate because by the age of 10, I'd lived in England, South Africa, we'd gone back to England, we'd gone to Canada, we'd come to Australia. And everybody goes like, wow, that was amazing. Like, no, it wasn't. Every time I formed attachments with people, my parents would go, okay, we're moving again. So again, that makes it really hard in adult life to form those attachments with people because I've never had to do the long-term relationship. So that's the tribal cycles, like you're learning what's been passed down through the generations. So that's how you are in an intimate relationship. So in my marriage, when I was married, we never showed physical affection to each other because neither of us, we both came from English families. That had never been modeled to us. Mm-hmm. I think in my marriage, we put so much energy into our children so as not to be like our parents that then we didn't put the energy into us as a couple, again, because we hadn't seen that. And that's why our marriage broke down. Yeah. That we're bad people. So that's in a very quick nutshell, that's how tribal cycles play out. Yep. But then there's also the roles that you play in your family.
Okay.
So if everybody had a functional family, and it seems like from everybody I talk to, nobody does. Even last night I was working with a client and he's like, no, my family's functional. And by the end he's going like, oh man.
Oh no.
So, but it was good because for him, he procrastinates and he did not understand why he did it. Then we did this stuff last night on roles that we played as children.
Yep.
And all of a sudden he understood why he has had so many unsuccessful relationships with women, and he also understood why he procrastinates.
Okay, so I can't wait to hear about all these roles.
There's 4 principal roles. The first role is, you haven't got the drum. I'm doing a drum roll, but you can't hear it. So the first role is the hero. So the hero is the person the child in the family that learns that to be accepted in this family, I have to always be rescuing everybody. I have to put everybody else before me. Obviously, if you're Superman or Wonder Woman, you can never be tired. You can never have a bad day. You can never say, you know what, I've just broken up with my boyfriend. I'm not in the mood. Save yourself from the fire.
Wow.
So the hero.
A whole heap of emotion because that sounds like me. But keep going.
All right. Well, if you need to, we can talk afterwards. Take a couple of deep breaths.
Yeah, all good.
Because it's all good. Once you understand where it comes from, then we can talk about, so as an adult, you would be I shouldn't say that, you would probably be very over-functioning. To everybody else, you seem extremely capable, successful, on top of everything. And if you were to say to somebody, hey, I need help, Superman never puts their hand up and says, I need help. So people would think you're joking.
Yeah, well, that's definitely a lesson that I've learned in the last few years. Now I know where it comes from. That's what brought up the emotion. I'm like, oh, now I understand because it's this role I was playing in the family. Yeah.
And that's why I'm so passionate about this stuff. Like, because you've never been aware of that, you can't deal with it. Now you're aware of it, you can deal with it. The next role in the family, and this was my brother, he was the scapegoat, problem child. So my dad was pretty much a psychopath. So that my dad didn't have to accept responsibility for being extremely moody, extremely mentally unadjusted. I don't know what's the right way to say that.
Yeah.
My brother had to be the child that was blamed for everything.
Okay.
So if my dad was in a bad mood, it was my brother's fault. If my pencils weren't sharp at school, it was my brother's fault. My brother got caned for me not having sharp pencils at school.
Oh, wow.
My first day at school, and now that I understand it, I could almost cry. Okay, teary. My very first day of school, my brother was 7 years older than me. He was standing at the school gates, knowing my parents were dropping me off, smoking a cigarette. So that is him screaming out, going, I'm rebelling. I am the bad child. Somebody help me. And obviously back in the day, nobody understood that that's what he was doing.
Yeah.
He was just a naughty child. So
Yeah.
for him, because everything is his fault, it's obvious that you end up being the problem child at school. You end up in trouble with the police. You end up in gangs, drugs, all that sort of stuff. So that's the path that he went down.
Wow.
And obviously, he is a very under-functioning adult. He doesn't feel safe, and he has learnt that you either take everything as being your fault or you blame somebody. So either way, we call it below the line thinking. You are not responsible.
Yeah, okay.
You're responsible in a very negative kind of way.
Mm.
The next role sounds maybe easier, but again, this client I was talking to last night, he realized he was the invisible child, the people pleaser. So he, the brother, the older brother, he had a sister a couple of years younger. Both of his parents were professional people. His father was hardly ever home with his job, and his mother was a doctor. And when his father was home, there was a lot of arguing, the mother telling the father what he'd done wrong.
Yep.
And they expected him to marry, like to do well at school, get good grades, get a good profession behind him, to have a successful marriage, to breed and have children and portray the happy family. So he's the protege child, the poster child, and he wonders why he procrastinates. It's like, you are so scared that you are going to make a mistake.
Yes.
So of course you procrastinate.
Yeah.
When he looks at relationships, again, because he's never seen that modeled, he doesn't know how to do it.
Yeah.
And he even said, my sister has been in a relationship, like they were together 5 years and they've been married 20 years, perfect marriage, lovely children. And like, yeah, again, from the outside, but she grew up in the same house. So she's not well adjusted on the outside, just because you don't argue in front of people.
Yeah.
So the people pleaser, obviously in adult life, they're never going to put themselves first. Everybody else will come first and your needs will be last until you make yourself sick, run yourself in the ground, don't know who you are.
Yeah.
I think for me, there was a bit of that because, again, part of my troubles with relationships is I give and I give and I give to someone and I expect that they're going to give back, and they don't and they don't and they don't. And then I just go, that proves that I'm not worthy.
Yeah.
Off I go.
So before we get to the last role, can I ask a question so that I remember? Oh. Can you take two roles on?
Yeah.
Because I feel like I was the hero and what was that last one? The people pleaser.
The people pleaser.
Yeah.
The invisible child.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, I feel like I was both of those.
Yeah. And as I talk about that one today, I realized that was part of my role too.
Mm.
Because the role of the hero and the invisible child, the people pleaser, is to make the family look functional from the outside.
Yeah.
But anybody looking at your family would think, judging on what a lovely little girl you are, and especially if you're an old soul.
Yeah.
You see that as a good thing, but no, that's a kid that's terrified to be themselves.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing with all of these roles. Really what you're learning is to fit into this family, to be loved, to feel worthy, to feel that you're enough. I can't be me. I have to be somebody else.
Yeah. Wow.
And as an adult, you okay?
Yeah, I'm getting there. It's just, it makes a lot of sense. Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So this is where, yeah. Okay, so then for me in my family, where there was, and you think my brother is always in and out of trouble with school, he's always phone calls, getting caned, getting suspended, getting expelled, police are coming around, he's involved with drugs, he goes missing for 2 or 3 years at a time, you don't know if he's alive or he's dead.
Yeah.
My dad's got this foul temper where he literally would not speak to me for 2 or 3 days. Or he would suddenly have an explosion with his temper. He never I never saw him hit anybody. He was too clever to do it in front of other people. So all of the horrible things that he did to each of us, he did where no one else could see. So in recent years, I found out he used to electrocute my brother.
Oh, wow.
Hold on to this. This will be funny. Oh, no, it's not turned on. You'll be right. Or he'd get me up on the roof to help him and he'd pretend to push me. So obviously in a family like that, you need someone that's going to put a blanket on it all and be the entertainer, the joker. So I have an amazing sense of humor. Every single photo, there's me doing some stupid thing because everybody laughs. Everybody says, oh my God, you're so funny. Because in my family, somebody needed to do something to distract everybody and just go like, look at me being an idiot. Forget about my brother. Forget about my dad's bad mood. Forget that mum's crying. Forget that mum's got a broken rib.
Yeah.
Everybody forget it. Just joke. So one of the things I hadn't realized I do is when I was doing one of my coaching courses, we were doing a live demonstration and I was the client. And I said something about when I was raped as a child and I kind of smiled and laughed. And the guy that was my coach said, why are you laughing? And then it's like, and again, I hadn't studied this stuff at that stage, but because that's my role, you make light of everything.
Yeah.
Obviously, in all of those roles, there are different emotions that you are not allowed to express. Yeah. There are ways of being that you're not allowed to be. So for me, I could never be sad. I could never say, hey, I need a cuddle, because my needs were secondary. And that's the trouble, that I've looked at my childhood through rational eyes. And of course, I'm a parent as well. I understand one of your children is in a life-threatening situation. Yes, you have to have your attention there.
Yeah.
But that child is in the egocentric stage of development. Up until about the age of 6, psychologically, a child thinks everything that happens in the world is about them.
Yeah.
So if parents are fighting, if there's dad dies of cancer, if a brother gets hit by the car, whatever happens in the family, to a child of that age, you think it's all your fault.
Yeah, wow. Okay.
So then those roles that we play in childhood are kind of like, we learn that to survive and be accepted and feel that we're worthy and we're loved and we're wanted. This is how I have to be in this family. So I think over time we kind of forget who we are.
Yeah.
But around the age of 40, 50, we move into another sort of, there's 4 archetypes of development. And we move into the stage where we've kind of done the 0 to 20 where we're focused on ourselves.
Yep.
We've done the 20 to 40, 50 where we're focusing on getting married, getting a house, building a career, building assets.
Yep.
Kids are leaving home or they don't really need us anymore. And all of a sudden it's like scratching your head, well, who am I? Where do I go from here?
Yeah.
So the sad thing is that most of us as adults are running around with the beliefs that we formed when we were up to about the age of 9 with a child's understanding of the world, and that egocentric, like everything that happens in the world is my fault.
Yeah.
So that's the weight that we carry around as adults, and we wonder why we overeat, why we do drugs, why we do alcohol, why we're addicted to being busy, because that's my addiction, busyness, because if I'm busy, I don't have time to think.
Yes. Wow. That all makes so much sense. So is there the 4 main roles? Are there other roles that could come into play, or it's mainly those?
There's other little roles, but they're the 4 main ones. And I think they're probably the most dysfunctional, hard.
Wow. So we have the hero, the people pleaser, the invisible child. That's a people pleaser, is the invisible child.
The villain, the scapegoat.
The scapegoat and the joker.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so that is fascinating, and I know as I was listening to that, it put a lot of the pieces into place, a lot of the puzzle pieces into place for me in my own life. So I know I'm not the only one, and that will be the case for a lot of people who are ready for the next stage of their development, where they need to hear this. How do you help people to move on from this, or to get to that next stage in their development, to get past these beliefs that they have?
So one of the things that I do is called a role integration. So it's taking you through, and we'd obviously spend a lot longer talking about the different roles and explaining how they play out in childhood, how they play out in adulthood. If that's your principal role, what do you need to do differently?
Yep.
But then it's also recognizing me as an adult now, how is that showing up in my adult life?
Yep.
And then there's the conscious choice. Now that I know it's there, how much of my life do I want that to be? Mm-hmm. And I will always want to be the entertainer and the joker. It has a place.
Yep.
There are times when it is an extremely good skill to have. But the joker shouldn't be there when I'm sharing my trauma from my childhood and feeling like I've got to make everybody smile. Yeah. So learning to integrate them, learning to understand. I think a lot of it is just acceptance when you're aware of something and you can accept it. So like today, you've said a few of the things that I've said have hit you. Yeah. And now a lot of things, and as you go away from today and you start processing, a lot of this will hit you and you'll come back with more questions. Yes. So your next step to helping yourself is to either go and look up on the internet, watch YouTube, whatever, look up tribal cycles, look up roles that we play as children, think about how that would affect you in life, think about each of those roles that you played as a child. Like if you're Superman, what emotions can you have? What emotions can't you have? What can you do? What can't you do? Yeah. If you're procrastinating, which of those roles is it? And again, that's what I forgot to say. The quiet, invisible child is often a very solitary child because they'll often go in their room, they'll read books, they'll do artistic kinds of things. So very, very, got you there, did I? Very, very solitary. So again, you understand.
Yeah, wow.
And as I say that to you and I'm looking at your face, I think when I was up until the age of 6, we lived in South Africa, there was no television. So I've always presumed that I do that stuff because there was no television, not because it was a safety mechanism.
Yes, wow. So interesting.
So that's what I mean, like the more you talk about it, the more you understand yourself. And once you understand and you're aware of it, then you can choose, do I want to change it?
Yeah, awesome. Okay, so I think that's a lot to process. So we're pretty much going to leave it there because I do like people to walk away from an episode not having overwhelm. So there's definitely a lot to process in there already. I do want to ask you, and you've already given some action steps, which is great because that's one of the things I do like people to walk away with is some action steps. And to me, one of the biggest action steps is to really think about, okay, what roles did I play or am I still playing in my family and how is that impacting on my life? I think that's a really good place to start. And the tribal cycles as well, asking yourself the same questions about those tribal cycles. Do you feel that's a good place to start?
Absolutely.
Yeah, awesome. Okay. Now, I'll put links for people to connect with you further because I feel like so many people are just going to go, oh my goodness, now I know why this makes so much sense. And I feel that people are going to want to connect with you further. And I also will say, as long as you're open to it, I would love to have you on for further episodes where we can, probably break down, maybe talk about one role per episode. If that's something that resonates with you, I would love to do that.
Absolutely. I'd love to. Yeah.
Awesome, which I think will help a lot of people. But if somebody's listening to this episode and they walk away from it, what would be the one thing that you want them to know?
You're perfect the way you are. Oh. Because I think we beat ourselves up because we don't understand where we came from. And we go through life holding so much stuff on our shoulders and the weight of that stuff that we can't possibly be us. We've forgotten who we are.
Yeah.
So yeah, accept. You're perfect.
That's beautiful. I love that. I couldn't say it any better. So I want to say thank you so
much. Oh, we're going to
much.
stop this tear first.
I know. I want to say thank you so much for joining me today, and I really am. I'm really looking forward to the next episode we do together.
Yeah. Well, thank you so
much. Awesome. And I will see everybody on the next episode.
Thank you so much for joining me on this episode. Remember to check out the show notes, and if you have any comments, feedback or suggestions, I'd love to hear them. If you've received value from this podcast, make sure to subscribe, and I'd love you to rate and review the show. Have a fabulous day.